This week's parsha is Parshas Lech Lecha, and the Torah starts off with the words Vayomer Hashem el Avram, and God said to Avram, Lech Lecha me'aretzecha u'mimoladetecha mibeis avicha. Go and journey forth from your land to the land which I will show you. And this is the beginning of the journey of the first Jew of Avraham Avinu to come to the land of Israel. What is the meaning of the word Lech Lecha? Says Rashi, Lech means go, and Lecha means for your benefit and for your good, because there, in the land of Israel, you will become great. In its inner meaning, Lech Lecha is a directive to every single Jew, because Avram was the first Jew, and this directive, Lech Lecha, is a directive to all Jews in all generations. Lech, go. Go and do something. Go and elevate yourself. Go up. Always be doing something. Always be achieving something. Go out there and go and do something and elevate yourself and the world around you. Now, the whole parsha is called Lech Lecha, and one would expect in this parsha to find only positive things where Avraham Avinu is achieving and good is happening. And yet, close inspection of the Sedra shows us that immediately after Avraham Avinu, after Abraham had come into the land of Israel, something seemingly negative took place. Vayehi ra'av ba'aretz. There was a famine in the land. Vayered Avraham Mitzrayim. And because of the famine in the land, Avram was caused to go down to Egypt. Not only that, but Sarah, his wife, was taken into the house of Pharaoh. And even though the Almighty protected her in a supernatural way, and Pharaoh's house was plagued and he didn't even touch her, nevertheless, this taking of Sarah into the house of Pharaoh caused great pain and anguish to Avraham, seemingly the opposite of Lech Lecha, go for your benefit to this land. How can we understand this? And how can we understand, if you want, a descent, but for the purpose of ascent? There is a beautiful differentiation between the two Talmuds. Talmud is an interpretation, an expansion, and an explanation of the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, Judah the Prince, the first one ever to collate in a most concise form, Torah Ba'al Peh, the oral tradition, did so in the Mishnah. And thereafter, two Talmuds which explained in great length the Mishnah were made. One in Israel by Rabbi Yochanan, who redacted and edited the Talmud Yerushalmi, the Jerusalem Talmud. The second was made where the main body of Jews were thereafter in Babylon by Ravina and Mar Baravashi, who made the Talmud Bavli. What is the difference between the two Talmuds? A student of the two will immediately recognize that the Talmud Yerushalmi has much less incisive discussion and comes more quickly to its decision. The Talmud Bavli, on the other hand, the Babylonian Talmud, is much more meandering in its style, goes into great length, incisive questions, analytical discourse, and only after much discussion comes to its decision. There is a saying, B'machashakim hoshivani, that through the darkness and through the great debate of the Talmud Bavli, it comes to its decision. And in fact, if there is an argument between the Talmud Bavli and Talmud Yerushalmi, we actually follow the opinion of the Talmud Bavli. So from this we can understand that specifically sometimes through the descent into the darkness, the confusion, but working through that and coming out with something positive is even more valuable than a brief and discussion of the Talmud Yerushalmi. And that is the explanation of the descent of Avraham into Egypt. Yes, superficially, it looks like something negative, but it was specifically through the descent of Avraham into Egypt and the story with Pharaoh that thereafter, Vayahal Avraham Mitzrayma, that Avram came out of Egypt, Kaved Ma'oid, Bamikna, Bakasef, Uvazahav, with cattle and silver and gold, and of course we know Maaseh Ovesim and Labanim, everything that happened to the patriarchs happened to the children, just like Avraham Avinu descended to Egypt, and something negative happened, but thereafter he went out with great wealth. So too did his children descend in the time of Jacob down to Egypt. There was the bondage and the slavery, but thereafter the redemption and the exodus of Egypt with great wealth. And this is the lesson which we can glean from the opening words of the Sedra, Lech Lecha, and everything else that happens in the Sedra, which some of it is positive and some of it is negative. But those moments of descent are in fact the path to the ascent. This in fact is how we can view the entire Golos, the entire exile which we are in. And although it's difficult, although there is much darkness, nevertheless, it will lead to the time of the coming of Mashiach, when there's a beautiful verse in Haggai which says that Godel Yeh Koved Habayas Hazeha Achrein Yosem Min Arishain, that there will be greater glory and honor in the third temple than there was even in the previous temples, as the Zohar interprets the verse there. And this is a lesson which each one of us can take to heart. We often start off idealistic, Lech Lecha, we're going to achieve something. Sometimes we have an aim, we have a goal, we have an ambition. And then we run into problems. There are challenges. We need to surmount them. It becomes murky waters. But nevertheless, we need to go kadima, move forward. We need to realize that those moments of challenge and travail are only descents which will lead to an ascent. And lech, go, because lecha, it will ultimately be for our good. Although externally it looks difficult, internally the ascent is awaiting around the corner. The purpose of the darkness is in order that from within that darkness there should come forth light. Lech lecha. Let us embark upon that journey, and let us, each one of us, make a difference in our own lives, in the lives of others, and elevate ourselves and the world around us.